You're listening to Health Savvy You, where understanding health starts with you. I'm Dr. Navjot Buttar, a dental surgeon, health communication epidemiologist, and your friend on the journey to better health literacy. In every episode, I break down complex health info, teach you how to spot fake health tips, and share practical tools to help you think clearly, ask smarter questions, and make confident health choices. Keep listening because becoming healthier shouldn't feel out of reach, it should feel empowering. Welcome to another episode of Health Savvy You. Over the past few weeks, we spent time unpacking health misinformation. Last week, we shifted gears just a little. Instead of looking at how misinformation spreads, we started looking into how health science works. Today, I will talk about something that spans both: how certain health related terms, when not used correctly, can lead to confusion as well as misinformation. Language is powerful. The words we use to talk about health carry weight. They can build understanding or they can create fear. They can make people feel supported or they can bring shame. And when I scroll through social media, I notice how often people mix up health terms, or worse, how health influencers take advantage of that confusion to sell us things, or to scare us, or even make us distrust good science. Today's episode is not a complete dictionary of every health word that's misused, but I'm going to walk you through some of the most commonly misunderstood words, especially the ones that show up all the time in everyday health conversations online. Let's get started with something that affects all of us every single day: food and nutrition. You might be surprised to learn that research suggests that up to 80% of information that we see about food and nutrition on social media is wrong or misleading. That is a huge number. Part of the reason is that certain words get painted as villains, while other words get painted as magical solutions, even when the science behind them doesn't support those claims. Take, for example, three words that get thrown around constantly: organic, natural, and chemical. Organic food is grown under specific farming rules. That means no synthetic pesticides or fertilizers, no hormones or antibiotic agents, no genetic engineering, and no radiation treatments. But when people hear organic, they often think healthier. The truth is, while organic food may have slightly lower pesticide residues, there's no solid research showing that organic food has more nutrients than non organic food. And as of today, research hasn't shown any clear link between eating food grown with pesticides and increased health risk. So, if you can afford organic and enjoy it, go ahead, it's fine. But if you can't, you're not missing out on a magical health benefit. Then, natural, on the other hand, simply means it comes from nature. But natural is not the same as safe or healthy. Poison ivy is natural. Some deadly mushrooms are natural. Snake venom is natural. In fact, natural on food label usually just means the product doesn't have added colors, artificial flavors, or has only been minimally processed. But it does not guarantee it's free of chemicals, and it doesn't mean it's better for your body. And then there's the word chemical, the big bad villain in so many health posts. If you paid attention in your high school chemistry, you'll remember that everything is made of chemicals. You, me, the air, water, bananas, apples, all are chemicals. A chemical is simply a substance with a defined structure. Saying chemical free is basically impossible. When someone tries to scare you with the word chemical, just remember that even the most natural organic product is made up entirely of chemicals. Oversimplifying these three words, organic, natural, and chemical, can lead to what I call fear based eating. People may spend money they don't have on overpriced foods, or they may avoid safe foods because they are scared by the label. In the end, it's not about farming label, but the overall balance of your diet that matters most. Let's move to two other words that carry a lot of fear: additives and preservatives. An additive is simply something added to food to improve it, maybe to enhance the color, the flavor, or the texture. A preservative is a type of additive that makes food last longer, so it doesn't spoil as quickly. Without preservatives, most of our food would go bad in just few days. That would mean a lot more food waste and much less access to affordable, convenient meals for busy families. But in recent years, both additives and preservatives have been painted as bad or scary, part of your chemicals in your food narrative. What those influencers don't tell you is the amount of additives allowed in our food is carefully regulated and designed to be safe for a lifetime of eating. The real truth is that the dose matters. Even water can be dangerous if you drink far too much of it. So instead of fearing additives and preservatives, it is more important to recognize how they keep food safe and accessible for people who may not have time or resources for farm to table meals every day. Now, let's tackle a word that's probably one of the most overused in the health space: toxin. Scientifically, a toxin is a harmful substance made by living things like snake venom or certain bacteria that produce toxins in food. That's what the word really means. But online, toxin has become this vague scare word for anything someone wants to call unhealthy. A bag of chips full of toxins, a piece of cake toxic to your body, a household cleaner loaded with toxins. And the misuse doesn't stop at food. We even started calling people toxic or labeling relationships as toxic. Now, don't get me wrong. Sometimes that language is trying to capture something real, like a relationship that feels emotionally harmful. But when everything becomes toxic, the word loses its meaning. It turns into a buzzword instead of tool for understanding the real risk. Calling every little thing toxic distracts us from actual dangers. It shifts our focus away from unsafe doses, harmful exposures, or truly dangerous substances. And in the emotional sense, calling people toxic too quickly can stop us from working through normal human conflict or from approaching relationships with compassion and nuance. Overuse dilutes the seriousness of the word, and that helps no one. Now, let's talk about food labels again, because this is another place where confusion runs wild. You might have seen list of ingredients and thought, wow, I can't even pronounce half of these words. This must be bad for me. But the reality is, most of those long scientific looking words are simply dietary minerals your body actually needs. For example, zinc, iron, calcium. These are metals, yes, but they're also essential nutrients. Without them, our bodies wouldn't be able to grow, heal, or even function properly. And yet, when people hear the word metal, they automatically think it means something harmful, like lead or mercury. Yes, some of these metals are dangerous in certain forms and amounts, but lumping them all together as bad is misleading. It can make people avoid important nutrients or spend unnecessary money on supplements they don't really need. Speaking of villains, let's not forget one of the sweetest: sugar or carbs. Sugar or carbohydrate in general has been demonized as the enemy of modern health. But here's the truth: sugar is your body's energy coin. It is what your body spends to do everything: move, breathe, think, and even dream. About 45% of carbs you eat are used by your brain alone. That's why when you're hungry or cranky, you feel that irritability. It's your brain asking for fuel. Now, there's an important difference here. Naturally occurring carbs, like those in fruits, vegetables, and grains, are excellent sources of energy and nutrients. Added sugars, like those in sodas, candies, or desserts, are the ones we need to limit. The problem isn't carbs themselves, it's the excess of added sugars that throw our health off balance. Dose is the problem here. When people go to extremes and cut carbs down to almost nothing, the body has to work harder to get energy from fat and protein. That's not an efficient way for your body to function long term. And worse, This fear of sugar can make people avoid even healthy foods like fruit because they have sugar in it. That's a misunderstanding that can actually harm health rather than improve it. Now, let's get to one of the most overhyped wellness fads detox. Detox teas, detox juices, detox programs, they all claim to cleanse your body of toxins. But here's the thing your body already has its own detox system. It's called your liver and kidneys. These organs are filtering out harmful substances 24/7 and they are very efficient at it. If something is truly toxic to your body isn't going to politely store it up, waiting for your next juice cleanse. It's going to get rid of it as quickly as possible. So, why do detox products seem appealing? Because they promise a quick fix, a clean slate. But in reality, they are unnecessary and sometimes even stressful for your body. The best thing you can do for your natural detox system is to keep your liver and kidneys healthy through balanced nutrition, hydration, and avoiding real risks like smoking or heavy alcohol use. And finally, let's tackle the so called miracle word superfood. Every year, it seems like there's a new superfood being promoted chia seeds, turmeric, blueberries. And yes, many of these foods are nutritious and good for you. But the word superfood itself is purely a marketing invention. It suggests that one single food can prevent disease, cure illness, or give you extraordinary health. The danger here isn't in eating the foods, it's in magical thinking. When people latch onto one superfood, they may ignore the bigger picture of eating a varied, balanced diet. No single food will protect your health on its own. It's the overall pattern of what you eat proteins, fats, carbs, vitamins, minerals, and yes, even sugary treats in moderation. That matters most. If there's one big takeaway from this nutrition section, it's this balance is the key. Unless you have a medical condition that requires a special diet, eating a wide variety of foods in reasonable amounts is your best path to good health. That doesn't mean junk food should be your main meal, but it does mean you don't have to fear it either. Even processed foods, additives, and preservatives, which often get painted as villains, actually play an important role in making food safe, affordable, and accessible for many families. Fresh, balanced meals with proteins, fats, carbs, fibers, minerals, and vitamins are wonderful. But when that's not always possible, it's okay to know that other options can still be safe and nourishing. Next, let's go into the world of reproductive health because there are two very common words that are often used interchangeably but really shouldn't be abortion and miscarriage. Abortion is when a pregnancy ends early. Sometimes that happens because of a medical procedure, either chosen by the pregnant person or recommended by doctors for health reasons. Miscarriage, on the other hand, is when a pregnancy ends on its own without anyone choosing it. Where things gets confusing is that medically, some of the same treatments used to help someone after a miscarriage, like certain medications or procedures, are also used in abortions. That overlap makes people think they are the same thing. And in everyday talk, people sometimes call miscarriage an abortion, which can create a lot of unnecessary judgment for parents who had no control over what happened. Words shape how people are treated. If miscarriage is labeled as abortion, people may delay getting urgent medical care out of fear, stigma, or legality. It can also prevent compassion when what families need most in that moment is support. Along the same lines, people also confuse the stages of development embryo, fetus, and baby. An embryo is what we call very early stage of pregnancy, about the first 8 weeks after conception. After that, when organs are still forming and the body is growing, it's called a fetus. However, the word baby is usually used after birth, though in everyday language, people may use baby earlier because it feels more familiar and emotional. The trouble comes when these words are blurred together while discussing health. For example, calling a 6 week old embryo a baby skips the important developmental differences between stages. And when people don't distinguish between embryo from fetus from baby, it makes medical conversations about risks, treatment options, or timing much harder to understand. If we don't use the right term, it changes how people perceive pregnancy, decisions, and healthcare. It can oversimplify complicated realities and it can add confusion at the time when clarity is critical. Knowing the right word doesn't just make you sound accurate, it changes how we talk about health, how we deliver care, and how we support people in some of the most vulnerable moments of their lives. Next is a pair of words that sound similar but mean two very different things: transgenic and transgender. Transgenic refers to an organism like a plant, an animal, or even bacteria that's had a gene from another species added into its DNA. Scientists do this for research, medicine, or agriculture. For example, some crops are made transgenic so they can resist pests or grow with less water. It's a biology term, not a human identity term. Transgender, on the other hand, is about people. Transgender person is someone whose gender identity is different from the sex they were assigned at birth. That's about who they are and how they experience themselves. It's not about genes or lab work. So why the confusion? Because the words start with the same prefix, trans. But if you mix them up, you're not only misunderstanding science, you're also misunderstanding people. And that can lead to conversations that are dismissive, inaccurate, or even hurtful. Precision in language helps us respect both fields: respect for people when we talk about gender, and respect for science when we talk about genetics. Using the right word prevents misinformation from spreading, and it also keeps us from making unfair comparisons between things that simply do not belong together. Moving on, one of the biggest areas where words get twisted in health conversations is immunity, especially herd immunity versus individual immunity. Individual immunity is what you have when your own body is protected, either because you have had a vaccine, or you have recovered from an infection, or your immune system knows how to fight it. Herd immunity, on the other hand, happens when enough people in community are immune that the disease cannot spread easily. It doesn't mean nobody gets sick or that you as one person can get sick. It means the overall fire of infection can take off because there aren't enough fuel sources for it. Here's where misuse comes in. Sometimes people think herd immunity means I don't need to protect myself because everyone else will protect me. But herd immunity only works when a very high percentage of people are immune, and even then, it works best for protecting those who can be immunized, like newborns or people with certain health conditions. Misunderstanding these two concepts of immunity can make people skip vaccines or underestimate the importance of community protection. And when that happens, the safety net of herd immunity falls apart, leaving the most vulnerable at highest risk. So the key is this: individual immunity protects you, herd immunity protects everyone, and both matter. Another term in the world of vaccines that scare people and creates confusion is emergency use authorization, or EUA. This is a legal pathway that lets health agencies allow the use of medicines or vaccines in an emergency, like when we have a pandemic, when the situation is urgent and the benefits outweigh the risks. It's not the same as full approval, yes, but it also doesn't mean unsafe or untested. It means scientists already have solid evidence that it works and is reasonably safe, but they don't have the years of extra data usually required for full license. Misuse happens when people treat EUA as if it means experimental or rushed. That misunderstanding can cause unnecessary fear or distrust in treatments that are actually saving lives. During emergencies, speed and trust both matter. If people misunderstand what EUA means, they may reject helpful interventions. In the field of pharma, when people are taking medicines, we also tend to confuse side effects with adverse effects. A side effect is simply any effect of medicine other than main one it's meant to have. Some side effects are negative, like nausea, but some can even be positive. For example, a medicine for high blood pressure might also improve kidney function. An adverse effect, though, means something harmful or unintended that happens as a result of a treatment. Not every side effect is adverse, but every adverse effect is a side effect. Why do these distinctions matter? Because mixing them up can lead to fear or misunderstanding about medicines and health advice. If we lump all side effects as bad, people might avoid treatments that could save or improve their lives. Now let's get a little more sciencey and start with correlation and causation. Correlation just means two things happen around the same time or in a similar pattern. A very common example we can use here is how ice cream sales and sunburns both go up in summer. They happen at the same time, they're correlated, but ice cream doesn't cause sunburns, right? Causation, on the other hand, means one thing directly leads to another, like too much sun exposure causes sunburn, and too much sun exposure may also make you want to eat an ice cream. Where confusion happens is when people see correlation and jump to causation. That is when you think ice cream causes sunburn just because you see both things happening together, all the while missing that summer sun is causing both. You might hear things like people who eat this food live longer, but maybe it's not the food. It's that people who eat that food also tend to exercise more or have better health care. If we mistake correlation for causation, we end up chasing magic fixes or fearing the wrong things. There are two more science terms that, when casually used, will lead to misunderstandings: statistical significance and risk. Statistical significance is a fancy way of saying that when we did the study, its results are likely because of the things we tested, or could it just be random chance? Scientists use data to figure that out. And here's the catch: statistically significant doesn't mean the effect is significant or big or even important in real life. For example, if a study finds a new food lowers cholesterol by a tiny fraction, it might still be statistically significant, but that doesn't mean it's going to change your health. Those results may be statistically significant under very narrow conditions and may not even apply to people generally. However, when headlines or influencers grab onto the word significant and they make it sound like a breakthrough, that is wrong. Significant in statistic doesn't always mean significant in your daily life. Next is risk. Risk is simply the chance that something could happen, good or bad. The problem is, risk is often presented in ways that make things sound scarier than they are. For example, a headline might say a certain food doubles your risk of cancer, but if the chance went from 1 in 10,000 to 2 in 10,000, the actual risk to you is still extremely small. That's the difference between relative risk, how much it changes, and the absolute risk, the real numbers. If we don't understand risk, we may avoid certain foods, safe treatments, or on the flip side, underestimate serious dangers. The last two words that I want to discuss are words used to describe human behavior and made to sound like something is clinically wrong with people. But really, this misuse leads to lots of stigma. First is OCD, or obsessive compulsive disorder, which is a real mental health condition where people experience distressing, repetitive thoughts, that is, obsession, and feel driven to do specific behaviors or routines, that is, compulsions, to ease that anxiety. It can take up hours of someone's day and make everyday life very hard. But in regular life and on social media, OCD often gets used casually, like saying, I am so OCD, just because you like your desk organized or your clothes color coded. That's not OCD, that's just preference. When we dilute term, we risk minimizing the struggles of people actually living with the disorder. Finally, the word hormonal, very commonly used to describe the behavior of women that doesn't conform with how society thinks a woman should be. Hormones are chemical messengers in the body that regulate everything from growth to mood to metabolism. But in everyday language, hormonal often gets used to dismiss someone's feelings, especially women's, by suggesting their emotions aren't valid, just hormones talking. This misuse belittles both normal human emotions and the real medical conditions tied to hormone changes, like thyroid disorders, diabetes, or menopause. Language shapes culture and our empathy. When OCD is minimized, people hesitate to seek treatment. And when hormonal is misapplied, it can dismiss real struggles and reinforce stigma and perpetuate bad cultural practices. Being careful with these words isn't just about accuracy, it's about respect, compassion, and making sure people feel seen instead of stereotyped. I hope, my health savvy friends, that today's episode has been helpful in clearing some of the confusion and fear you might have around these health related words. I hope that this will help you understand health better and stay away from misinformation. If this is your first time, please make sure you subscribe and follow to join us on the journey of becoming smarter about our health. As always, I will see you in 2 weeks with another episode where we will continue to learn how health science works. Until then, stay savvy, stay healthy.
Thank you for tuning into Health Savvy You. I hope today's episode brought you one step closer to feeling confident, curious, and in control of your health. If you found this episode helpful, share it with someone you care about. Keep learning and remember, health literacy is for everyone, including you. Be sure to follow or subscribe so you never miss a new episode. I have got more great conversations coming your way. See you next time, and until then, stay savvy, stay healthy.